Operational Conversion Unit for the Royal Air Force Eurofighter Typhoon force, and it provides the aircraft and its pilot, Squadron Leader Nathan Scheuer, for the first display of our first major air show of 2025 here at Duxford. And we're shortly to hear the roar of the twin Eurojet EJ200 afterburner turbofan engine. On the 45-degree line, positioning out to the west, and he'll be accelerating to a speed in excess of 500 miles an hour. Topping out there at about 4,000. Circa 600 miles an hour to below 300, and performing another barrel roll in towards us. Uncomfortable manoeuvre. Next, a negative G-turn. Nathan flood into its head, and you may see some unburned fuel from the aircraft's fuel lines venting through the vents at the top of the tail fin here. Converting that into positive G one way, turning the other. NATO's Baltic and Icelandic air policing missions, and they've made multiple deployments to Eastern Europe since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Now coming in for the high-speed pass, accelerating to the limit for air shows, just under it's the high-speed pass up to just under 700 miles an hour. Another 9G breakaway. Yes, as I was saying, the Typhoon force very operationally active. In fact, Typhoons have been stationed at Malbork in northern Poland, An-30, the Ilyushin Il-20Ms, Sukhoi Su-24Ms and Su-27s, even a Tupolev Tu-142M Bear. Now, at the slow, Nathan has slowed the aircraft to just 100. Apache, followed by the EJ200, which is 23. Sustained 9G. For his final pass, Nathan will be coming down to his 100-foot base height, accelerating once again to 600 miles an hour, and showing us once again the sheer performance of this outstanding multi-role combat jet, the Eurofighter Typhoon FGR-4. Giving us a slightly different car here in Holland, like only those by also, the aeroplane has two small Lynx jet turbines of about 300 pounds thrust each, and that is what makes possible some of the really extreme figures performed in this display by former RAF pilot Rich Goodwin. Into a spiral tower, topping off at about 2,200 feet into a flat spin. Coming in on the 45-degree line towards the show centre point. Coming past us now pretty slowly. There. Spiral above the airfield now. And once you reach the top, it's down into a spin.
That's my question. My journey. The pilots have come down.
A 3-point roll there to show you the upper surface of the aircraft briefly. Once again, I give you the marvellous Brendan O'Brien with the Cambridge...
Swivel round. I'll just let the noise die down. So the seats they're sitting in, they are strapped into them and they swivel round. So they can do handstands, they can go sideways and perform a lot of amazing stunts. So what they'll do, they'll take off now and then
the best time for people to wave.
In a moment as well, I imagine, on their way down. So we got on the red plane, I think, is Dave and Kirsten, and on the blue plane is Emma and Mike. Kirsten is in her 8th year, and Emma is in her 5th season.
And this is where the G...
That's it, that's where they pull the 4G, and now they'll be pulling up and go over the top.
This is where they can see everybody.
Oh yeah.
So, come on, give them away so that they can...
Everyone give them away.
This is being appreciated.
Kirsten at all. So she is judging when you better wait for the display line when to spin back out of a handstand.
Now you've got to have a lot of confidence.
Pardon?
You have to have a lot of confidence to do this in both the aeroplane, the pilots, and also that kit that you're using.
Oh, very much so. I mean, Dave has over... Oh, that does look good.
Oh, look at that.
Alex, as good as I was hoping it would. So at this point, also, they can't see each other. They're trying to guess where each other are and try and clock where you are to spin out at the same time, so they're in sync. And then we're going to go into the OPPO passes. So use one of ours to do the stuff. There we go. Now this is coming into the rejoin. And so they're going to rejoin, go back into formation now. And we'll see them go off. So they're diving down in. Again, about 4G at the bottom there, they'll pull, and in for the roll. So Kirsten's in the crucifix, and she's then the right way up, getting their legs as high as possible in behind them. Oh, that's my mistake, that is the reverse goose. My mistake. As well on this one, and holding on with one arm.
Do the girls have a day job, or is this...
Now, the participants in our ancient war play are getting airborne. First of all, our transatlantic guest from the commemorative Air Force of Douglas R4D6S, ready for duty. And following that, the Supermarine Spitfire 14. But it looks like they might have seen an enemy position on the ground. And the flak has opened up against our 4 spotting aircraft. The 2 Cubs, the Oster and the Bird Dog. Of the enemy. And as the flak is loose. Their weaponry to bear on the target. Going ahead again. Go on the target. In fact, deciding not to use weapons on that pass, so a bit of a shot. It looks like neither the bomber nor the Spitfire have been able to finish off the objective. The flak again being under.
Imagine if I could.
Comes to us from the Czech Republic, the civilian operator, Heli Czech, reported in 2012 they got an extensive fleet of some 18 non-helicopters and then this on top of them. One of just 2 Cobras still flying in Europe. Dates from 1977, was sold by the US Army into civilian hands in 1995 by the ex-French Air Force, or French Army I should say, L-19E Bird Dog, owned by BC Aero Limited. But now the final aircraft. And this aircraft brings also delighted to welcome special guests at Duxford this year. And it's the last of the actors in our Asian war play to come in to land. The pilots who flew for you in the two Piper L4s were Phil Hardesty and Tom Turner. We had Dave Ketters in the Oscar, Matt Pettit in the Bird Dog, Hugh Goldspeak was in the Spitfire 14, Yuri Podolsky of Heli-Czech in the AH-1 Cobra, and last of all, Kurt Lewis captaining the R4D. Well, that was something rather different for a Duxford show.
Home of the Chinook Force and the Helicopter Joint Support Squadron from RAF Benson, a joint Army and Air Force unit known as JHSS, or affectionately to us, the Hookers.
Oh, nice.
After the show, please do come on over to our tent to meet our RAF Odeon personnel who are critical for enabling the aircraft to take to the skies every day. This includes our operations team, survival equipment section, engineering team, and of course our air crew. They'll be there to answer any questions you have. You can also get your hands dirty on some aircraft parts, see our air crew equipment up close, and get some limited edition patches and other merchandise. Please do pop over and say hello. For the eagle eye view, you can see the aircraft just currently holding out to the west, just over the M11. So I'll just take this brief opportunity to introduce some of the crew. Chinook Operational Conversion Course. He was posted to RF Odeon in 2018. Cal has over 2,000 hours, with 1,400 of those on Chinook. He's flown in multiple countries, including the USA, Cyprus, and operationally in the Middle East. Cal is a qualified helicopter. And there she goes, listen to that blade slap and give the guy in the door a nice wave. The Chinook is deployed operationally in quick stop. They will simulate a lake spot of the landing site to offload the troops and vehicles inside. Either on or off the battlefield, the crew must be efficient in recceing their landing site, making sure it's suitable to land on in the minimum time to avoid threat exposure. Having found their landing site, and now making their approach, crewman Josh up front in the right will be giving voice marshalling directions to Cal and talking him forward and down onto the landing site whilst monitoring the height of the aircraft as she comes into land. You get your eyes now to the back of the aircraft on the crewman. The crewman on the ramp is Flight Sergeant Dave Sims. Born and raised in Margate, Kent, he joined the RAF in September 2014 as a weapons systems operator and has been on Chinook Force since 2017. He's a qualified helicopter crewman instructor and has accumulated over 2,000 hours on rotary platforms, completing many overseas exercises and operational deployments, and when Dave's not in work, and mostly when he is in work, he likes to be found on the golf course. He's also found the ability to glow in the dark, which will become apparent later on. You can see at the ramp, Dave's already cleared the troops out and the vehicles exited the aircraft. Now as the aircraft departs, it performs what we call an over-the-shoulder departure. This presents the armoured floor to the enemy and thus protecting the people on site, inside, and the troops. The Chinook can be fitted with an M60 machine gun on the ramp and two M134 miniguns on the port and starboard side, each of which is capable of firing 3,000 rounds a minute. That's 50 rounds a second and one hell of a noise. The Chinook and its crew can protect itself and deter engagements, protecting its passengers and any troops on the ground. Time now to introduce our co-pilot for today. Joining Cal in the cockpit is Flight Lieutenant Jacob Cameron. CJ's an avid Formula 1 fan, but there's nothing louder and better than the sound of a Chinook blade slap. Next up, the team will reposition, where we'll be showcasing an exciting and dangerous capability of the Chinook. Repositioning once more, then run in for a fast roping approach, decelerating the aircraft rapidly to accurately dispatch the troops on a tight landing site. If you look in the door now, Josh has dispatched a rope and Dave has dispatched a rope from the ramp. Chinook can simultaneously fast rope 4 ropes at once, 1 from the door, 2 from the ramp and 1 from the centre. Now as the troops have departed the ropes, the aircraft begins to climb. You can see that Dave has what we call banged off his ropes on the ramp, and Josh is working hard in the door now to recover what could be up to 90 foot of rope. So he's getting quite a sweat on inside that door. Okay folks, if you look now, keep your eye on the JHSS team that are currently sat on the runway with the quad bike. The crew now return to pick up the quad bike, which has rapidly been prepared by JHSS as an underslung load. Underslung loads are the bread and butter of the Chinook force, with all crew members front and back working together to manoeuvre the 99-foot long aircraft into a fine-tuned position. As Cal positions in the overhead of the underslung load under Josh's direction in the door, Dave is looking through the centre hatch to safely direct the pickup of the quad bike, with all 4 crew working in synchronisation with the JHSS team operating beneath the hovering aircraft. You'll notice 2 hookers would have held their hands up. One is holding a static discharge probe so they can touch the hook without getting an electric shock from the hook. It's particularly important when operating in dusty environments like the desert to save a nasty shock. Chinook can have 3 underslung loads, an underslung load circuit. We better mention some of our hookers teams down on the grass. On the grass today we've got the leading JHSS today is Corporal Jordan, who served with the British Army for 9 years. We have Lance Corporal Rowbottom, who joined the Army in 2010. We also have Air Trooper Paul Stripe, who served with the Army Air Corps for the last 5 years. And then finally on the ground we have AS1 Daniel Gray, who's part of 606 Reserve Squadron. Swing, road vehicles aren't big fans of height. The crew will manoeuvre the aircraft to counteract the swing as the load hits the airflow. The aircraft now returns to drop off the underslung load and complete what is called an operational drop-off. This is a combined rapid drop of a load and strops and egress away from the threat. It's used in a dusty or high threat environment to get important supplies rapidly onto the battlefield. Again there's the crew departing with an over the shoulder, presenting that ballistic draw to the enemy as they depart. So we all love popping a wheelie on our BMXs as kids. Now watch Cal do this whilst 30 feet away from the aft wheels in a 16.5 ton helicopter. At this point, Josh is monitoring the height beneath the front wheels, while Dave monitors the aft disc. At 26 degrees nose up, the aft rotor blades would strike the ground. We will not be demonstrating this today. The teamwork amongst the crew allows for effective information to be passed to Cal and CJ as they handle this magnificent machine. Now as the aircraft comes to a slope, it's time for the Chinook's party piece. As one of the only helicopters in the world. You can see now that the Chinook has presented its ramp to the crowd. Dave's now currently on the ramp with the nice orange gloves, which have become a bit of a mark for the Chinook crew team. As the aircraft lifts, you'll see Dave waving to the crowd, so make sure you give him a big wave back with those orange hands.
Yes, he will drive his yellow plane.
Big hands, isn't it?
So we have to take these off.
Dave's quite embarrassed about this, but those are his actual hands. So please make sure you keep applying that sun cream, otherwise this is what you'll look like. Also remember to give Josh in the door there a wave. He's not got the orange gloves, but he definitely wants to get in on that action. Helicopters types during the Kosovo War.
Dotty smoke, up they pull. Both into the vertical, pulling over the top. And continuing the pull, but this time not for a full loop, but transitioning into a quarter cloverleaf, twisting the manoeuvre off to the left as we look at it. Sunday the 7th of September. Get your advance tickets now from iwm.org.uk. It really does promise to be one to remember. In over the threshold comes the aircraft restoration company's Blenheim 1F. Beautifully flown by the chief pilot of the aircraft restoration company, John Gowdy.
1 knot down, 3.2 kilometers, 170, active missile. Heading 170, missile from the left rail, half clear, sinking straight.
A pair of hidden Army Air Corps Apache AH-64E attack helicopters run in. They're abreast for maximum firepower and able to fire a next-generation Hellfire missile from up to 12 kilometers away. They run in search for further targets.
Good effect on target, radar destroyed. The force armament is found to be attack from the east, rockets and guns.
Debris of the initial strike. When the mission commander is satisfied that the enemy air defense is destroyed, the gunships can climb to identify all enemy threats from above. This is done through the use of advanced thermal targeting cameras, and in the cockpit the crews will conduct a set of pre-engagement checks. If enemy movement is seen, gunship 1 and 2 can take action to dive on the target and engage with 70mm high explosive Hydra rockets like you have just seen. If aircraft centers were to pick up the once satisfied any positions are clear of enemy forces, the Apache pair climb into Overwatch. Out of the gunfire threat, but able to destroy any targets that may present themselves.
Good effect on target, 4 enemy vessels destroyed, radar threat delivered. On our side, dismount and destroyed.
The attack helicopters can continue to provide security of the objective area, while the Wildcats insert a team of Rangers. These come from the Army Special Operations Brigade. The Wildcat provides close support to the team with its 12.7mm heavy machine gun.
Good spot, target round. All targets destroyed, continue mission.
performing a helicopter U-turn. The Apache cruises at 140 miles per hour, and when responding to an urgent scenario, such as troops in contact, we can fly over 180 miles per hour, covering 3 miles per minute over the ground. High explosive rounds or explosive drone attacks. All integral systems are duplicated, meaning if one is blown up, another somewhere else on the aircraft allows the fight to continue. The AH-64E can soak up hostile fire and return the crew home safely. The aircraft systems will detect any threat to the aircraft. The cannon can automatically track a moving target and will follow the line of sight of the pilot. We can now see the cannon move beneath the aircraft as the pilot looks around. All they need to do is look at the target, squeeze the trigger, and a deadly burst of 30mm cannon rounds will destroy that threat. The MC-30 chain gun fired. You'll now see the Wildcat repositioned in front of you. It is a small, agile helicopter with a top speed of 170, an instructor on operational conversion and on tactics and conversion to ROM. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the 2025 Army Air Corps display team.
We have a British Airshow first completion, first public display of the Mark II Army Air Corps Apache, and a very nice chance here to see them close up. So, back to the Cold War years, and trainers from West and East for this next mixed formation. Two aircraft that will be very familiar to any of you who were air cadets or members of university air squadrons for many decades, through from the 1950s until the very start of this century. In fact, the other one of the most popular Soviet designs in the West since the end of the Cold War, was a very important training type in the former Soviet Union. Jet training concept. And here it is in over the motorway of the British Aircraft Corporation Jet Provost T5. The earliest Mark I Jet Provosts, we used to see one of those on the display circuit some years ago, like the Mark III, the first major production variant that incorporated a more powerful version of the Rolls-Royce Viper turbojet engine, as well as various other modifications. And it was the Mark III that cemented the successful run of the jet bomber. be able to tell that one of the engine cowlings is different from the others. It carries black and yellow checkers, and that's in honour of Smoke Pass to pay tribute to Ellie Sallingbow and to all of those who've ensured that this aircraft has now been flying on these shores for 50 years.
It's quite amazing that, isn't it?
This aircraft, and under Ellie's leadership, so it's remained ever since. She's still the operator of Sally B. The aircraft has flown on in spite of various setbacks over the years, and how important it is, particularly I think, as the numbers of veterans of the Second World War, not least the American veterans, so many of whom we've welcomed to Duxford over the years, gradually dwindles. This aircraft represents them. So, we must reiterate, as a privately owned and operated aircraft. It wasn't being supercritical. It wasn't the best in a close-in dogfight, though it did score a tremendous number of air-to-air victories. But as a very stable gun platform, it proved outstanding in the air-to-ground role, and in that it continued to excel right to the end of the war. Sally B being brought in there by its crew for today. Captain Baez was leading a flight from one of its squadrons, the second fighter squadron, over Belgium. He spotted a strange-looking aeroplane, which turned out to be one of the Luftwaffe's new Messerschmitt Me-262 jet fighters. He shot one of them down. And that was the first Allied victory over one of the new German jets. The P-47 is also a very important aircraft in the RAF, with Southeast Asia Command serving with distinction over there. This one's the only one flying in Europe. It's been fantastic to see it back on the display circuit. It was operated by the Fighter Collection for many years here. It scored a Sally B on many occasions during that time, then went to new owners in the States. It came back in 2018 in the ownership of Fighter Aviation Engineering, who keep it here. And it's been escorted Sally B on many more occasions. And it's in the market as an aircraft of the 48th Fighter Group, part of the 9th Air Force, which provided support for ground forces in particular, operating from bases stationed further west in the UK, in the 8th Air Force, specifically